What's good, YouTube? This is GoblinHands showcasing you Dark Magicians today.
Welcome back, my Dark Magician!
We have the original Dark Magicians, Red Eyes Black Dragon, and Dark Magician Girl. And in addition to those Dark Magicians, we also have the legendary Egyptian God cards.
Obelisk the Tormentor, Slifer the Sky Dragon, the Winged Dragon of Ra. Control one, and you can destroy 1,000,000 armies. Wield all three, and the planet itself will quake in fear.
These are the TCG legalized versions. However, today, for the purpose of this video, we're going to be using the original Egyptian God cards. Obelisk the Tormentor, the Winged Dragon of Ra, and Slifer the Sky Dragon.
I had the rare hunters reproduce counterfeit cards. The rare hunters tested each sample until we got it just right. Of course, when you're dealing with a creature of such power, things can get quite dangerous. Many of my obedient servants had difficulties with these cards, for not everyone can control the incredible power of an Egyptian god monster.
Alright, and in addition to those Egyptian God cards, we do have the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode.
The Winged Dragon of Ra is now in my control. What is that thing?
The Winged Dragon of Ra is locked in that sphere.
How can I use it?
You can't use it, you fool! You'll never unlock its ancient powers!
As well as Palladium Oracle Mahad. A couple more bricks to add, why not? But these cards are pretty useful as well. Sphere Mode gives you the option to tribute over all of your opponent's monsters without the need of the new spell card, and it's quite searchable. Palladium Oracle Mahad gives you extra draws. If you do draw your Dark Magician Girl, you could always dump it instead, so that way you could simply maximize hand value. And in addition to those, we do have the new Guardian Slimes. These are the Egyptian God card support. They allow you to search out your Winged Dragon of Ra spell card support whenever it's sent to the graveyard, even by your own card effects. So it's very useful in the deck. You could also use it to protect your life points. If your opponent inflicts damage to you, you could summon it, and the next attack, it's going to gain defense equal to that monster's attack. So it's kind of like a invincible body in that aspect. And in addition to that, we do have our Magician Souls. So these are the proxies, unfortunately. Magician Souls is pretty necessary in Dark Magicians. It allows you to turn any other monster plus itself into your Anaconda, as well as build your graveyard to set up your Soul Servant. So it's extremely useful. Unfortunately, it hasn't been reprinted yet, so that'll probably happen this January, I imagine. Until then, we'll just use those. And we do have 3 copies of Magician's Rod to round that out. This is the original Dark Magician support card. It allows you to search any spell or trap with Dark Magician in its text. So you could actually search Servant, and that will actually be able to stack your Magician Soul. So it kind of searches out your Dark Magician monsters as well. It's pretty useful. And then we do have 3 copies of Apprentice Illusion Magician. So with Apprentice Illusion Magician, you do want to be using 3 Dark Magicians. The reason why is because if you happen to draw a Dark Magician and Apprentice Illusion Magician, the next time you use your Illusion Magician, you're going to be adding an additional Dark Magician from your deck to your hand. Plus, you're going to want one in the deck for your Verite Anaconda play. So that's why we have 3 Dark Magicians in the deck, for the most part. But this card is pretty good. It protects your Dragoon, as well as create an extra body on the field. So you definitely want to be having access to your Apprentice Illusion Magicians. And we do have a small little plant package. We have 3 copies of Lone Fire Blossom. So this card is very useful because you contribute it in order to summon your Predaplant Orphis Scorpio from your deck. When Orphis Scorpio is summoned, you could add, or you could special summon a Darlington Cobra by discarding a monster from your hand. And that will go ahead and add your fusion spells directly from your hand. Plus you could turn these 2 into a Verite Anaconda. However, I am using 1 more plant monster, Predaplant Clam Sundew. So this card is, when it's summoned, you could actually fuse it with a dark monster in your field or hand in order to summon your Starving Venom or your Chimera Rafflesia. So just in case you happen to draw your Darlington Cobra, you could still turn your Lone Fire Blossoms or your Scorpio into something useful with this card. And that's pretty much it for the plant engine. We do have 2 more Dark DD Crows. So the DD Crows is pretty useful in this format. You could banish your opponent's Sky Striker or Mobilize Engage, or a Cyber Angel Ben 10 if you're playing against Drytron, or even a Miscellaneousaurus. So it actually has a lot of use against these limited cards this format. However, it's a pretty good generic hand trap this format regardless. Moving on to spells, we do have 3 copies of Soul Servant. So this is the main new Dark Magician spell card. You do want to always have access to it because it has an extra graveyard effect that lets you draw. However, it's alone. You do want to have 2 copies of Dark Magical Circle as well. In my last build I used 1, but in this particular build I'm using 2 because it works really well with the True Name spell card. And joining those, we do have 2 more Dark Magician cards. And that is Dark Magic Attack, as well as Bond between Teacher and Student. So the Bond will search your Dark Magic Attack directly from the deck, and it will also summon your Dark Magician Girl. So that way you have more utility with her. It's searchable with your Magician's Rod, so just having this small little package in the deck I feel like does a lot of damage against back row decks, as well as just give your field a bunch of extra bodies so you can turn it into Verite Anaconda as well, and build your graveyard for your Soul Servants. So it's pretty useful to have.
Dark Magician, show him some real magic! Dark Magic Attack!
And moving on to the Egyptian support, we do have 3 copies of the True Name. So once you could stack the top card of your deck using either one of those Dark Magician cards, you have the Circle or you have Servant, this card suddenly becomes amazing. You get to draw that card, plus you get to add an Egyptian God card from your deck to your hand. So it's really powerful. You generally want to add Slifer or Obelisk, or special summon them if you have a lot of cards in your hand. With Slifer in particular, it could be a 7,000 attack monster. You could just steal the game right then. And with Obelisk, it is a guaranteed 4,000 attack body. You do have these 3 Egyptian God cards. This is called Soul Crossing. So Soul Crossing is like Soul Exchange from the show, except it's a quick play. You could use it on your opponent's turn to tribute summon an Egyptian God card using monsters your opponent controls. You could do that on your turn too, but the best interaction is to generally use it with Slifer the Sky Dragon to create an extra floodgate on your opponent's turn. Absolutely insane. The only thing is it can be negated, unlike other Egyptian God card support. So you just got to be careful of that. However, if you draw 2, you could go ahead and activate the second copy. It's pretty useful.
Your mask only stops me from sacrificing my own monsters. But I plan to sacrifice your monsters instead, Loomis, with this card. Now I activate the magic card Soul Exchange, which lets me sacrifice your 3 Magnet Warriors.
We're finished! If Kaiba summons Obelisk the Tormentor, we'll have no hope of winning this duel!
This is for my little brother!
And we do have 1 copy of Ancient Chant. So the Guardian Slime can search this card because it lists the Winged Dragon of Ra in its text. And this card can turn your Winged Dragon of Ra into a full power Winged Dragon of Ra. Using your Soul Crossing, you contribute your opponent's cards, and then using your Ancient Chant, your Ra will gain all of their attack points without having to pay any life points. However, you can then pay extra life points if you want to boost Ra or use its destruction effect as well, so it's very useful overall.
Huh? What's that?
That is the Ancient Chant, used to call upon the hidden powers of the Winged Dragon of Ra.
But I don't remember seeing that writing when the card was in my hand.
In ancient times, the Winged Dragon would only obey those who chanted the words in an ink that can only be seen when the monster is summoned.
Alright, and that's pretty much it for the Egyptian spells. But we do have the Fusion card support. So we do have 1 copy of Red Eyes Fusion. This card, you don't want to draw it necessarily, but if you do, you could just summon a Dragoon. However, having access to this in the deck is pretty useful. If you use more copies, later on those copies will be dead. So that's why I only have one. However, yeah, in some builds I do recommend using more than one copy. But in addition to Red Eyes Fusion, we do have 2 copies of Super Polymerization. So this card is not good against every deck in the game, but it is pretty useful. If you do draw one, you could still search it off of your Verite Anaconda, or sorry, your Darlington Cobra or Chimera Ophesia. So just having access to 2 will get you twice as many results for the most part. And it is quite searchable. You do have 1 copy of Refusion, and this is actually a copy of Magical Eyes Fusion. Hasn't come in the mail yet, but I figure I might as well just put it out there anyways. Refusion is pretty useful. It could resummon your Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, and Magical Eyes Fusion could resummon one at full power by banishing your Red Eyes Black Dragon and Dark Magician. So I think both of them are pretty useful. Overall, it gives your deck a lot more life if your opponent does get rid of your board. And then moving on, we do have our generic cards. You could replace them with whatever you want, but I think Dark Ruler No More is particularly strong in this format. You could break almost any board. You could just completely destroy your opponent. So I figure you might as well try it. It could work against pretty much anything. And 1 copy of Called by the Grave can guarantee your opponent doesn't use Ash Blossom against you. Very useful. Hopefully it'll come back to 3 someday. And then we do have a field spell engine. We have 1 copy of Terraforming, 1 copy of Secret Village of the Spellcasters, and 1 copy of Mystic Mine. So having access to both with Terraforming can be pretty useful, because if you go first, you want to end with Secret Village of the Spellcasters. But if you go second, you could use Mystic Mine, so your plays don't get interrupted by your opponent's monster effects or by hand traps. So they're both very useful spell cards in the deck. Moving on to traps, you do have 1 copy of Metaverse. In order to search either one of those trap cards, you could completely surprise your opponent by activating either one on their turn. Then we do have 2 more trap cards. We have 2 copies of Summon Limit and 2 copies of Eternal Soul. So Summon Limit works particularly well in Dark Magician because they only summon once or twice generally. And Eternal Soul is very good, but you do want 2 copies just in case one of your copies gets destroyed. You want to have access to a second copy. Alright, and that's pretty much it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck, we do have not 1, but 2 copies of Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Now the reason why you have 2 is because 1 for the Verite Anaconda, the other for the Refusion and Magical Eyes Fusion play. So you'd revive 1 with Refusion, and the other one you would go ahead and summon through Magical Eyes Fusion. However, we do also have the Predaplant Chimera Ophesia. So this is the card that during your next standby phase after it's sent to the graveyard, you get to add any fusion spell from your deck to your hand. So it's pretty useful, honestly. And then we do have 1 copy of the new Egyptian God Slime. So this card cannot be destroyed by battle, and your opponent can only target this card with card effects. Yeah, also the same for attacks. So this card basically becomes a gigantic body against your opponent's very underrated, very powerful card. You could tribute it to summon an Egyptian God card because it counts as 3 tributes as well. So yeah, it's definitely very powerful.
Meet my Egyptian God Slime! I told you it was indestructible!
Eric's fusion monster is regenerating itself!
My Egyptian God Slime is able to intercept every attack you make!
Your Egyptian God Slime is made up of 2 monsters, so I'll be making a double sacrifice!
And we do have a small link lineup, 2 copies of Predaplant Verite Anaconda, as well as 1 copy of Relinquished Anima, and 1 copy of Mduke, the World Chalice Dragon. So the idea is with Dark Magician, you want to be able to turn it into an effect monster. So you could use either Link Spider of Mduke, the World Chalice Dragon. And Mduke has a couple other uses in the deck. You could actually use your Magical Eyes Fusion to fuse itself and your Dark Magician from the graveyard into a Dragoon without having to use your Red Eyes. Plus, if you use this card with Super Poly, it makes it easier to summon your Dragoon or your 5-headed dragon. It has an extra battle effect. Any monster that it points to can be destroyed by the effect, so it's very useful. And then Relinquished Anima similarly has an extra utility in that regard. Whatever monster it points to, it can just steal like a relinquished monster. So yeah, you could use it with your Magician Souls. It's just free removal. And then moving on to the super polymerization targets, we have one copy of Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. So this is used for any 2 dark monsters. And whenever it's destroyed, it destroys all of your special summon monsters. That's pretty much its main effect. It could also copy an opponent's monster, but generally that effect doesn't come up. You do have Mud Dragon of the Swamp, a little bit weaker, but it's any 2 attributes, just as long as it's a different type. So yeah, it's pretty useful against all the other decks for the most part. We have El Shaddoll Construct. If you're playing as Shaddolls, very powerful. Winda might limit some of your plays. However, El Shaddoll Construct will allow you to try and go for an OTK and just destroy your opponent. Same with Salamangreat Violet Chimera. You could steal their monsters, which are required to activate their traps, and just completely destroy them. And the same with Eldritch the Mad Goblin Lord, which actually is immune to battle, so it can even get over a powered up Eldritch at 3,800 attack points, and it can't be destroyed by their traps, so it's very useful. And then we do have 2 more blowout cards. 5-headed dragon. If you're playing against dragons, which are with a Dragonity support, they're linked into dragons only, it's even more powerful. But pretty much you could just completely wreck any dragon deck with this. And Predaplant Trifrioritum. This card can negate special summon monsters from the extra deck. However, it is 3 dark monsters, so it's another blowout card. But having both of those just in the pinch that you might have a chance of activating either one is very useful. Alright, and then moving on to the side deck, more super polymerization targets. We have 1 Prank Kids Weather Washer. So if you're playing against Prank Kids, they leave a Harpy's Feather Duster and like Geki monster on the board. This pretty much clears that. We do have World Chalice Guard Dragon Almaduke. So this card is actually Wind. You could use it against the Barrier Statue combo and use your opponent's Link monsters. And then we do have Invoked Icelium. So this card is good against Invoked, obviously. But you could use their Mechaba and any other monster they fusion summon from their extra deck, or Link summon. And then you could banish it as well as any attribute of your choice on the field. So because it's counted as all 6 attributes, it's very useful. And then we do have 1 copy of the new Mysterion, the Dragon Crown. So this is fused with any spellcaster and any dragon. And this card allows you to pretty much banish any monster that summons another monster or itself. And then you banish all other types of that monster. So let's say you're playing against dragons. They could use a Pisty, and then you just activate this effect, and then you banish all their dragons. So it's absolutely insane. Alright, and then we move on to the more generic side deck cards. We do have 1 copy of Dark Magic Attack, and 1 more copy of Bond Between Teacher and Student against those back row decks. We do have 1 more copy of Secret Village of the Spellcasters against something like Sky Striker. 2 more copies of Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode against combo decks.
Arise, my winged dragon of Ra!
It's locked in that sphere of light!
Great beast of the sky, please hear my cry. Transform thyself from orb of light and bring me victory in this fight. Envelop the desert with your glow and cast your rage upon my foe!
1 more Dark Ruler No More, similarly against combo decks, and 1 more Super Poly, also against combo decks. If you're playing against Sky Striker, you might want to throw in an extra D Crow. So these are all extra targets that are already in the main deck. However, because it is 60, you might want to see some of these cards a little bit more often. And we do have a few more hand traps. Artifact Lancia is good against dinosaurs. It's good against Drytron, Tri-Brigades. It's good against a lot of decks, even dragons too. So yeah, it's very useful, this format. You could even main deck it if you want. Alright, and that's pretty much it for the deck profile. Thank you so much for watching, and happy dueling. Goodbye.
It's showtime! Dark Magician, attack Yugi's life points directly!